Good evening, everyone, and welcome to BGC Book Club. I hope you enjoyed that nice new little introductory video. That's something fresh for the new year. And if you're wondering who all those beautiful women are, they are some of the women writers that we've had on the BGC Book Club over the course of the last couple of years. So I was really excited to share their photos so you can see, and then you'll have a chance to go back and perhaps watch some of those videos. So by way of introduction, my name is Marcy Thomas, and I'm the founder of Brown Girl Collective, host of the BGC Book Club, as well as Live Well Sister, which is one of our other platforms. And I'm just super excited to be here this evening to talk to you about something that's very important to me. And actually, our author tonight, and I didn't talk about it, but I had some real friendship experiences over the last couple of weeks, so I could really resonate with the book that we will be discussing. So tonight's guest we have with us, I'm just waiting on my note, we have with us this evening Rona D. Drinkard, aka Rona D, who is a self-published award-winning author who manages a team of project managers during the day and writes at night. Originally from Buffalo, New York, the setting of her debut novel, Friendship Matters, she was inspired to write a book after relocating to Maryland with her daughter. Although Rona writes fiction novels focusing on family, love, and friendship, her primary preference when reading or watching television is sci-fi. That's very interesting. Outside of reading and writing, Rona loves event planning, singing, traveling, socializing, and creating, along with a great cup of coffee or a glass of wine. Rona resides in Maryland with her husband, daughter, and granddaughter. Without any further delay, let's welcome to the room Rona D.
Hello, hello. Thank you so much for having me, Marcy. I appreciate you. I'm very excited to be here. So thank you.
Oh,
Great
you're
introduction.
welcome.
I love the way you read it. You made me feel real good.
And there were things that I actually left out. So yes, but I just
Okay.
want people to get
Right.
a good feel of who you are and what you're all about. So, Rona, I guess let's start by telling us a little bit about your journey to debuting this new book, this wonderful book that I had opportunity to read, Friendship Matters.
Yes. So actually, I started writing that. That's, of course, my first novel. I started writing in 2003. That's
Wow.
when I relocated from Buffalo to Maryland. And when I got here, I realized I'm like missing family. I'm missing friends. I didn't know people like that. I only knew a couple of people. And I was actually teaching. And so the summers off and the breaks gave me time to write. And I just started writing to reconnect with family and friend, the culture, the relationships kind of like that I had. And it just grew into this novel that you see today. I actually finished writing it in 2005.
Oh, wow.
All I did was copyright it, but I couldn't afford to move it forward at that time.
Okay.
Yeah. So then, as you see, it's published February 5th of 2022.
Wow. So
Mhm.
that just makes me, wonder, well, a couple of things. Number one, the story and these characters just really resonated with you and stuck with you for a long time, because you would think with that amount of time that maybe you would have moved on to something else or figured out something else, to write. So
Mhm.
these characters really resonated with you.
They
So,
did. And
so,
to me, it was important to. I didn't change anything
okay.
because when I picked it back up and I read it again, I'm like, you know what? It applies to today.
Mm-hmm.
Like it still rings true. I don't know if people, when they read it, how many have noticed immediately, like you don't see texting,
No.
right? Because it was written in 2005 and we weren't texting at that time. So just little small things like that. Yeah. It's
Mm-hmm.
amazing. I kept it all. Mhm.
Wow. Yeah. And just to think, number one, the way that the characters resonate, the way that the story itself is timeless. And then just the fact that you continued with the process.
Yes. I
So
did
did
not
the
give.
pandemic kind of open up your mind to say, let me go ahead and get this out? Or, what was it that made you go ahead and do it after so much time?
So somewhere around in 2020, I remember saying to my husband, I said, I feel like God is saying to me, don't leave this pandemic the same way you came in.
Mm.
And this was the only thing. I'm a finish what I start type of person.
Right.
So it always bothered me that I didn't, follow through, or I hadn't finished it. So at that time, he was like, well, let's do it. I've been wanting to read it because I would talk about it periodically and stuff.
Mhm.
I wasn't married to him at the time, so he had never read it. He didn't know it, anything about the book. And he was one of my first readers. And so that was what motivated me to do so. It was like, why waste all of this time that you've had off? Now take what you've started, finish it, and see it through.
Right.
Mhm.
And that's very powerful for a lot of us who may have things going on and we kind of set it aside for a while and think,
Right.
but if God put it in your heart to do it, if you feel that convicted about whatever it is that you've created or the idea that to go ahead and do it is never too late.
Never too late.
Never too late.
Absolutely.
So
Mhm.
for those who haven't had a chance to read Friendship Matters yet, just give us a bit about the story so we would know what to look for.
So it's a story about three friends. Their names are Euniqé, Saisha, and Kandace. I always like to talk with my hands. Goodness.
Yeah, I do. So.
You see, so Euniqé, Saisha, and Kandace, and they are friends. They have been friends about 20 years. They're very different women, but they come together and support one another in ways that are so relatable. I think that every person who reads it can kind of find a piece of them in at least one of these ladies.
Mhm.
And so you have Saisha, who is a single real estate agent who is seeking to replace her first love, who has relocated. And sometimes she, tends to entertain men that are not so single, but, she's on a search. And then you have Euniqé, who's more of your straight-laced conservative character. She's a psychotherapist, but she's widowed. She lost the love of her life, raising a 9-year-old son, Tyree. And then you have Kandace, who is a housewife, mother of 2 children, and married to a man that is not always faithful. And so she's put a lot of her goals and her dreams aside to support his career. And, and I forgot to mention, Euniqé is not necessarily open to love when the book starts. And so that's something that is a challenge for her along the way. So they find, while they're going through all these different things, they kind of weave together their family, their friendships. Saisha is the godmother of Tyree. Kandace is, just been the friend. They don't talk to her as every day like they do the other 2, but when they come together, they don't miss a step. And they're loyal. And you'll find that in the book. And they're loyal with love, in a way that I think is very important to friendships as a whole. Although it's a fiction story, you feel like it's something that you can relate to in your own lives. Mm-hmm.
I definitely could. There are pieces of each character that I could see, a part of me somewhere in there. And then, as I was mentioning in the intro, just the whole thing of friendships. Because I have a friend from 3rd grade, we're still close, still talk, several times a week, and others along the way. But then also being able to embrace new relationships as well. And it really is something about sisterhood and being able to get together with your friends and, love on each other and, call each other out when you're wrong, encourage each other, all those sorts of things. Yes, have a comment that friendships are a family. Like, absolutely. And this book does. This book does touch on, the fact that they're very much like family, sometimes better than your family in a lot of ways.
Sometimes blood doesn't matter,
Right.
it really depends.
Right, it really does. So give us a little snippet. I know you have something that you'd like to share with us, just so we can get an idea of your writing style and to learn a little bit about one of the characters. And then I do have some, we'll get into some more questions here.
Sure. I decided Saisha is always a fun one because she's the sassy character.
Right.
And so I decided to jump into chapter 5. So Saisha has her eyes set on a gentleman that is, as I said, she's a real estate agent, and he's working with her to buy a home, and he's invited her to dinner. Well, Saisha is like, this is our first date. That's her mindset. And so she has gone all out, gotten new attire, done her makeup, everything. She's ready. and going to this upscale restaurant that they have there. And so I'll just start from the beginning. This is when when she starts to leave the house, and then she enters the restaurant. So, chapter 5, Promising Future. I left the office with goosebumps. I can't believe how nervous I am. I took a bath to relax myself and decided to go light on my makeup. I was always told that one of the sexiest parts of my body were my lips, and I definitely wore the right lipstick today. As I sashayed out of my house and got into my Infinity truck, I decided to play some Layla Hathaway. She reminds me so much of her father. My ex, Lamont, loves her too. When I pulled up in front of Samantha's at 6:45, I began to feel sick. To calm my nerves, I started focusing on the outside of this beautiful restaurant. Samantha had outdone herself. She had valet parking, which I took advantage of, and the sign adorning her name was perfect. Inside the restaurant, she had very soft colors all through the waiting area, and her choice of furniture was right on point. Samantha was conversing with the gentleman at the greeter's desk when I entered. I recognized her immediately. She noticed me and was excited to see me. Her smile was beautiful, like I remembered. I saw your name on one of our professional cards and wanted to make sure I was out here when you arrived. You and that brother of yours look like twins. We hugged and I told her how impressed I was with her restaurant. I shared that I definitely planned to return. Well, to seal that, I'll have your waiter bring your choice of wine to the table. It's on the house. How many will be eating tonight? Oh, just 2, thank you, I said with an excited voice. Then she leaned over and said, now you have to promise me that you will tell your fine brother I'm still in love with him. Oh, of course I will. I damn near promised before she got to finish her sentence. Then I wondered if all Terry got from her were sweet potato pies. I gave the man in the nice suit my name, and he told me that they were waiting for me. I immediately stopped, and as ghetto as it sounded, said, they. My heart started pounding, and I wanted to turn around and run straight out of there. I pulled myself back together, looked myself over in the mirror, and prayed that he'd be there with his brother or someone. As I walked in, I saw beautiful Tiffany chandeliers hanging and candles burning on every table. Some were floating candles and some were tall wick candles. Each table had their advertisement cards in the middle. I could see there were some real professionals in here tonight. To my enjoyment, most of them were Black. You never know how well Black people are doing in Buffalo until you get all of us in one area at the same time. I saw doctors, I saw lawyers, entrepreneurs, writers, etc. My heart continued to beat extremely fast, and I wondered if I was about to have a heart attack, if this would be my very last breath. I saw him with his hand in the air. Next to him was a woman dressed in a very nice dress. I relaxed. This seemed to be his mother. Now I'm soaring on cloud 9. Not only did he invite me to dinner, but also he wanted me to meet his mother. Maybe it was the move I pulled on him when I stopped abruptly at the house. Smiling when I came to the table, he stood up and introduced us. Saisha, this is my fiance, Carolyn, Cameron said with a smile. I almost threw up all over the both of them. This woman had to be at least 50 years old. Say-sha, I said to myself, get it together and remain professional. Hello, nice to meet you, I lied. Nice to meet you also, Saisha. Please have a seat, Carolyn offered. Cameron helped push my chair in, and then took his seat. He could not have had a clue how I was feeling at that moment. I wanted to kill him for not leading me nor feeling the same attraction toward me. He must be crazy. Look at her. Look at me compared to her. She looks like a great aunt or someone. I tried to keep some type of smile on my face while at the same time tried to find a way to get out of dinner respectfully. I could feel her staring at me, and of course, I avoided looking at her because it made my stomach hurt. I swear she was trying to make me jealous. She kept saying Cameron and I, or we, or our, as if I gave a shit. Cameron started looking very unattractive at this point. Now that I look at him, he's got a big ass head and bites his nails. How disgusting is that for a man of his stature? So I'm gonna just stop right there.
Thank
So
you so much. I love it. And hearing you read it was even better. And we have a comment from Priscilla said, love that chapter. Yes.
Thank you, Priscilla.
Yes, that's something else. Dana as well.
Dana,
This is one of my favorite parts of the story. Yes. I was sitting there, you couldn't see me, but I was laughing, chuckling as you were reading.
It's hard to read it without laughing. It really is.
Right. Mm-hmm. And somebody said they want audio. Okay.
Audio. That's midnight. Dana was just telling me that she loved that chapter too. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And it was his mama. Yeah, that was hilarious. So that's
chiming in, huh, Sheen?
Hey, hubby. When I say it gets juicy after that, absolutely. But one thing that I was teasing you about this in the background that why does 50 have to be old? But of course, you explained you wrote this a while ago.
Yes. So don't hurt me. Every time I get in a reading or a book club or chat with a group of people, they always ask that question, like 50 ain't old, and it's not because I'm 52 years old. So
right,
but
exactly.
For her, she was just getting into her petty mode at that point. Now she's just mad.
Right. She's just mad. But what really tripped me out about that particular incident and just Saisha in general is that a lot of times she would just jump the gun. She's like, you're doing too much, girl. You're moving too fast. Slow down.
Yes. That's her personality.
Yes. Yes. And that was just interesting to see, but, for those who've never watched before, we don't do the spoilers. So for those of you all who've already read it, please don't spoil it in the comments. But, but it just speaks to one of the things that a lot of times, like she's very successful in her career and all of that. And like a lot of, women, Black women specifically we're successful in one area, but sometimes we are struggling in these other areas. And sometimes, in terms of relationships, and sometimes we don't make the best choices.
Correct. And sometimes you put all of your energy in that one thing. If it's the job, if it's your education, whatever that is, and you just lose sight of making sure you balance yourself.
And we have another comment, like she thinks like we all do, but just don't say it out loud.
Right. Yeah. She just went on and said it in her mind, and she most certainly told Say-sha, Kandace, and Euniqé. She
right. And that's the whole thing of having those friends that you can be open and honest with in that. And that is one of the things that I really enjoy about, the relationship between or the friendship between the three women, because yes, there's romance, because the book has a lot about romance and relationships, but it's all about how these women are navigating those relationships, how they kind of lean on each other or, share a lot of things with each other. And I love the fact that even though they're in relationships, they don't let go of each other, because a lot of times that's something we see happen with women and in friendships. Somebody gets married, has a baby, has a new boo. They forget all about their friendship.
Absolutely. And you could tell it throughout the book, it's very important to them. Like, what does Saisha do for Euniqé? Euniqé can't cook. And she has the mindset that, okay, because you got my godson, and probably she would cook for her even if she didn't, but that's a good excuse. I'm going to make sure that at least 2 to 3 times a week, y'all come over here and eat, because you need to learn how to cook, but you don't. So I'm going to feed you anyway. She teases her every time.
I really love seeing that as well. And it also, it was something that she was good at, and it gave her a chance to show that love and even care for herself in the midst of that.
Yes.
Sometimes if I can speak from personal experience as a single person without children, like Saisha, it's easy to do, I'll just go grab this, or I'll go out here, or I'll order in for that. But so that gave her an opportunity to take time to nurture her own skills and, make sure that she was taking care of herself as well.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
Now, Euniqé, she is something. Euniqé is unique.
It is unique.
I
Yes.
actually know
Yeah.
someone whose name is Unique. She spells it a little differently, but her name
Oh,
is
does she? Okay.
Unique.
Okay.
Mhm. But
Yeah.
I loved her as well. She, as you mentioned earlier on, she is the conservative one in the bunch. She's a widow, and she's just navigating her career, being a mom, dealing with grief, all those things at the same time.
Hmm. Hmm. And she's the one that I consider to be the foundation of the friendships. She keeps everyone together. She keeps them grounded. She's the one. You can be petty, but she's going to bring you back and tell you to, the right thing and to make the right decision. At least what she views as the right decision. Um, but she is that way for many reasons, right? And you get some insight into her life and how she became the person that she is. But she is definitely um, not lonely, but she misses her husband.
Yes.
Most certainly. I think you can tell from the story how much she really loved him and he loved her. And it's got to be hard for her to navigate that. And you have a boy at that, right? And so you just trying to raise him to be the best young man. And I'm telling you, he is busy trying to date at 9, right?
Wow,
So
yeah, that's something else. They start early, don't they?
they do, they do. And so that's all she feels she needs to focus on, from her point of view.
Hmm.
And there's Earl.
Right. But yeah, and that's the thing. There are a lot of women, whether it is that, they lost a spouse in this case, or they're just a single mom for a variety of reasons, that sometimes you'll go through the whole thing of figuring out, okay, outside of being a mom, who am I going to be? Outside of my job, what am I going to do? There's room and space for love in my life, but am I ready for that right now? How do I
Mhm.
pursue that? How do I introduce my child to that life? I mean, it's a
Yeah.
lot of different factors.
Yes, yes. And that was one of her concerns and why I think she just chose to read in her free time.
Hmm.
She didn't even bother because it just was too for her in her mindset it was just too much.
Hmm.
Mhm.
But she
Mhm.
meets somebody without getting very deep into it, but she does meet someone
She
who
does.
kind of changes her mind.
Yes. And he's such a gentleman. And I
Mm.
think that was key for Euniqé because of how she is, her characteristics and how she moves. It was important that if anyone was to kind of pique her interest, he would have to be a gentleman.
Hmm.
Maybe not just like her first love, Anthony, but he would have to approach her in that way because she is that type of woman.
Hmm.
Hmm. Hmm.
That is so true. And I love the fact that, I mean, yes, even with the male characters that you have in the book, you have some that aren't worth 2 cents.
Right.
But then you
Couple of
also
them.
have the balance of good black male characters.
Right.
And I will say
Right.
that this is a book about black love, and just put it out there.
Right.
Because there are,
It is.
maybe mix things up a little bit. But I like the fact, which is no problem with that. But in this particular story, it is, strong black characters have, good jobs, all these sorts of things. So it's good to see that as well.
Yeah, and I thought that was important because that's the beauty of writing to me. You can make it whatever you want to make it. And it's not that we don't see that. It is underrepresented in the media and stuff like that because we see this every day. But I thought this is an opportunity for me to go ahead and write it just the way I want it to be. You
Right.
know, some of these people that my friends, is the funniest thing. Friends and family, they swear they're in the book. They're not in the book. Um, but I have in my personal life people of that character. I do,
Mm.
male and female. And so it is represented. And I thought that was a great opportunity to do so in the book, because that's what I surround myself around. I keep those type of people around me.
Right, right. And that's good to
Mhm.
see. We have a question from the audience. Which couple did you have the most fun with?
Oh, which couple? That's a good question. I'm gonna say Saisha. Well, I can't say it
Yeah,
because
we can't really say because it's going to end up being a
okay,
spoiler.
okay, that's a good question. So then I will say that I did have fun with Euniqé and Earl. I had fun with all of them, honestly. Their interactions were just either shocking or hilarious to me, or
Mhm.
just loving, you know. I will say the Lamont interaction throughout the book and wherever he falls, it was also a lot of fun. There's a scene that's one of my favorites in the goodness, I'm drawing a blank, the limousine.
Okay, yes.
She had a dream. That
Mhm.
right there, that was a fun scene too. So I want to say that I had fun with all of the couples, to be honest.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And they each had their own, unique experiences
Yeah.
along the way. So, with that, one of the other things that I love, and I mentioned that you're originally from Buffalo, New York.
Yes. Born and raised.
Yes. So I pray that your family was okay during all the stuff that went on there recently.
My family was okay through that, even the massacre in May. They are all good.
Yeah.
Yes.
No,
But we
that's
did
good.
lose a lot of people back home.
You
Hmm.
know, that's definitely a blessing for you. And we continue to send prayers out to the people who are in that area.
Thank you.
But I love the fact that you included your city. You
I
know,
did.
I felt like I've never been to Buffalo. Maybe through it once coming out of Canada, but
Uh-huh.
I've never really been there. But I felt like Buffalo was like one of the extra characters in the book because there's so many things that you talk about the city and things like that.
Right. So my husband, when he read it, he said that this was my love letter to Buffalo. That's the way he when he finished the book. He said that's what jumped out at me. If you're from Buffalo, you see some little nuggets, certain things
Mhm.
that we eat or drink that's unique to
Mhm.
the city. And some of it is proper named or it's just made up or what have you. But nonetheless, I thought that was very important because how I learned to relate to people, I did so back home.
Mhm.
That was the culture. Buffalo is in New York State,
Right.
but people from the city would say we're country because we have
Okay.
more southern roots. And
Mhm.
so, because they had the steel plant, so people migrated from real deep down south to Buffalo. And so we do have more of a southern feel, and the relationships and the friendships and all of those, most of them were built there. I've made friends here locally as well, but most of them come from that area. So I thought it was necessary. I mean, that's all I knew too.
Mhm.
Right. So it was very important to me. And I rep Buffalo everywhere I go. Yeah. Even the Bills. I still do. They still my team. It's okay.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's right. Buffalo Bills. I can't
Yeah.
remember. Are they doing okay?
We
I
we
don't
we
follow.
lost yesterday. We
Okay, I
lost.
don't follow it like that. So
That's okay. Yeah. But
see,
yeah.
I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, so I
Oh,
know the
are
whole
you? Okay.
Midwest thing.
You understand.
I
Yeah. Yeah.
understand. Yeah, the Cleveland Browns suck.
Yeah. 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 I
I lived in
understand.
Detroit for a while too. The Lions suck. That much I
Right.
know.
Right. They did okay though. They did okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Hmm.
Yes, but Latrita, forgive me if I'm not saying your name correctly, but it was such an accurate portrayal of the city. I grew up there until age 14, and it brought back so many memories. And the food.
Food. That's my cousin, Trita.
Oh, okay.
That the food, I'm telling you, when we go home, my father teases me all the time because he's like, "Do you have to get off the plane eating?" Yes, because I can't get none of this anywhere. Like you can go how you would party and you hungry after you'd been partying. 2 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, you can find some good food.
Oh,
I
wow.
We can't do that here. Yeah, so it's the food is very important in Buffalo, and I
Okay,
think
now since we're on that topic, I know Buffalo wings. What else is popular in Buffalo for those who don't know?
okay, so they have what is called beef on weck. That is, it's a kosher salt on the bread, a special bread, and with a little sauce. They're known for that. Our pizza, I have not found better. Um, One of my favorite pizza places closed down during COVID. Oh my God! You
Mm.
see, if you mention Leonardo's to anybody from Buffalo, they're like, oh, so disappointed. But very good pizza, very good Italian food, Southern food. Our steak sandwiches. Now that's a big thing because Buffalo has steak sandwiches. We have a sauce that goes
Mm,
on ours. So you'll never see lettuce, tomato, and we don't do that. That's not authentic.
okay.
It's cheese, onions, peppers, whatever, and they do like a chopped burger, and they'll chop
Mhm.
the burger. And let me tell you something. I want to eat right now.
Right. I'm getting hungry. So,
So we have a lot of everything. I mean, you really don't find even our tacos. I mean, just everything. We have Louis. Everything you want, you can get in Buffalo. The Taste of Buffalo, which is usually, I think, early July, is really good for those that haven't, been to Buffalo. It's always good to try it because you will be hooked on it. If
wow.
nothing else, you'll be cold and full.
Cold and full. Wow. Mm.
Absolutely.
Well, you get warmed up from the inside.
Absolutely.
Ah,
Absolutely.
well,
I
we
think
have.
Priscilla asked me a question. What did she say?
Oh, I think it was just talking about the food. Oh, the question. We'll get to that one later.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
But Kandace, we have not yet talked about Kandace, and she is not featured as much as the other two, Saisha and Euniqé, but her story is very important as well because she represents another side of of womanhood, being that stay-at-home mom married to a man who makes a lot of money. I don't know if it ever said what he did, but I know he makes a lot of money, and she kind of stays at home. And there are some choices that she has made and will continue to make based upon the fact that she's that stay-at-home mom.
Right, right. And I mean, he affords her the ability to shop as much as she wants. She can sing. She's has an eye for interior designing, and she just really kind of put a lot of that to the side to be at home, raise the children. And while she's done so, as I stated, that he's not always faithful, there's been some infidelities and she's forgiven. And so, there comes a point in her life where she decides whether she wants to continue down that path. But she is a woman that I would say that initially it was difficult for me to write her character. Yes, it was very difficult because she had to make some difficult choices in her story. But she is definitely a person that I found most readers gravitate to her the most. And I was so shocked because she was hard to write. She was hard to create. So that was one of the most shocking things out of this experience, is that Kandace is a lot of people's favorite.
Wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I was very shocked.
Yeah, I mean, just because from my perspective, having read all of the book, it's like her story. I know that there are women who live her life, but in our community, you don't see a lot of women who live her life. Maybe they think they want that life.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But it's not normally not the reality for most of us.
But see, I think what they identify with most is, her decision to choose
herself
eventually.
Okay.
Right. And so I don't think that, whether she was a stay-at-home mom or what have you, and married to a man with a lot of money, I think that's more about choosing yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we have to make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
And it depends on what's going to bring it to light for you.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yes, choosing herself and, just deciding to just do things differently. And even when her well-meaning friends make suggestions to her, she's like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to do this.
Yeah. She stays true to who she is until she decides to do different,
Yes, I like that you see the pros and cons of Kandace's lifestyle. Absolutely. Absolutely.
You have to, because we have women living like that every day.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I'm just thinking of one person that I know in particular who has kind of a very similar situation to that, but like I said, she's one of a few that married, but she has a lot more kids than what Kandace had. But yeah, has a big family, and sometimes it's like you want those people to find their place and their happiness. I mean, not just because of the fact that, perhaps in her case, she has a husband who's unfaithful. It's not always that, but it's just, I don't know, the thing of being able to have a piece of you that's just you and not centered in everything that someone else expects you to do and be.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the movement of self-care, right? Because we get caught up in it, even if you don't have children, sometimes your job becomes, it takes up everything, or taking care of family members. We're nurturers by nature. And so eventually you have to decide to figure out the balance, or you'll lose yourself. I remember having a book chat, and one of the ladies had brought up that when she read the book, it made her realize that she did what you had mentioned. She got married and had children, and she kind of severed the ties, or didn't keep communication open with her friends, and now her children have graduated from high school. And she said, she's looking at her husband, and he has figured out what works for him, but she has no idea what she's going to do. And so she was thanking the book club, because that's where she's going to have to start, because now she's looked up and she realized she done lost herself. You know what I mean? She doesn't even know what she likes at this point.
Very interesting you say that, because I know someone else, another person will often say, I don't really know what I like. And I'm like, how do you not know what you like? Right. But then it makes sense if everything in your life has been centered around others, whether it's a spouse or children, or being a caregiver for parents, or, work or whatever. It makes sense. It makes sense. It makes sense. Well, I really like the fact that, really in the three main characters, we see all these different places in life. And I like the fact that they are still able to maintain their friendship, as I said earlier, and then they kind of walk each other through the different phases of their journey, whether you're single and dating, widowed and grieving, or married but not necessarily happy. Just to be able to hold space for one another in all of those different situations. I love seeing how that played out with them as friends and sisters, really.
Right. And that's how they call each other's mother, ma, or, that's how they interact. I also thought of it in a sense that, how you don't see as much of Kandace until later in the book, but they always made space for her. She calls Euniqé Neek. She's the only one that calls her that. So whenever you see Neek in the book, it's Kandace talking about Neek. Just the little small things that they do for one another, or the joking, you teasing one another at different points, telling the stories from when they were in high school and stuff like that. So I think that was very key as well.
One of the other things it made me think with Saisha, it's like, how can I put it? Having your soulmate, but then also realizing that sometimes your friends are your soulmates. The soulmate can mean a lot of different things.
That's very interesting. They can definitely be there at times when you need them the most. Yeah.
Because most of the time we tie that into something romantic, but it's not always that. Because how many, I know there's people watching, how many of y'all know that a lot of times your girlfriends know more than your boyfriend or your husband does? I mean, because there are just certain things that sometimes they just know you better. It's a different type of connection that, as much as you love, your partner or your spouse, it's just a totally different type of connection with a close, girlfriend or girlfriends as these women are in this book. It's just a different thing.
Right, right. And I mean, they see each other every Sunday at church, right?
Mm.
Even if they don't see each other during the week, like it really, they are definitely intertwined. Um, and I just thought that was very important because that is what friendship means to me.
Mm.
Um, you know. Hmm.
So that kind of segued into my next question. Why does friendship matter?
Well, I know from the personal aspect, it was one of those things. I grew up. I didn't grow up with all of my siblings in the same house, so I had my oldest. I was the oldest, and then my baby brother is 10. So my friends growing up, like I mean, you did everything together. They came to the house. My mother would cook, and so the lines were so blurred that they were family early on. you
Mm-hmm.
know so, and that's how my mother was with her friendships. They were like, you call them aunt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Automatically. And we do the same thing with our children today. And so it's just a piece. I don't know where I would be without the friendships that I have. It's a piece that is just as close as blood to me. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think friendships, as women especially, we help each other get through a lot of things, you know, whether it's relationships, dealing with our children, just, ups and downs in life, disappointments, whatever. We support each other in the manner that you just spoke of, almost like a soulmate, so to speak. I know who I can go to.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that if I don't talk to you for 4 months, you're not going to be mad at me.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to pick up where we left off because we understand life. Um, and I also think that friendships, especially represented in the book, you don't need to be the same. Like,
Right.
how boring is that? It's
Right.
good to have that friend that has that'll set you guys straight, or to put us all straight, and the one that'll go too far so we can have to pull her back, laugh about it
Mm-hmm.
later, or what have you. It's good to have all of that. You want
Right.
that. I don't think you grow with everybody just being the same.
That's true.
So, I mean, I think that's why it matters. It matters for growth overall.
Mm-hmm.
We carry ourselves through it, you know?
And
Mhm.
I would have to concur with that. You mentioned having siblings. I actually am an only child. So, so
Oh, okay.
yes. So my friendships, as I mentioned, one from third grade, and I have a lot, through over the years that have been in my life for, a long portion of my life. And it's just so important. And one of the things that kind of frustrates me sometimes when you see that when women don't know how to come together and have friendships, where they allow jealousy and just a lot of pettiness and other things to get in the way of being able to connect, because we are important to each other. There are ways that we can love on each other and support one another that we may not get from other places. So I think that a lot of what you see on social media, the way people talk about and to one another on
Right.
social media, or, all of these housewives and all these shows and things like that, it really would make you think that we don't have the relationships, or we're not able to connect in those sorts of ways. But that's not true. It's a false
Absolutely.
narrative.
It is a false narrative. I mean, there's a place for them and that, but this is something that I think we take very seriously. Like I said, the aunt and uncle it's like automatic. My mother
Mm,
used to say, "Put a handle on it." That was her way of saying, either you're gonna call this person Miss or Mister, or Auntie or Uncle. You choose how you feel about them, but this is somebody important to me, and so you're going to interact with them in that manner. So I think those values that we've carried through, because I'm old fashioned, and you could probably see that in the book. I have, I bring a lot of what you see, I still, entertain today, right? So
mhm.
um I think it's very key, and I take my friendships very, very seriously. Love them to death, love them to death. And I bring them in. I bring my old ones into my new ones, and we
Right.
fit. You
Right.
know, we fit.
Right. Right.
Hmm.
Well, the gentleman, your hubby.
Oh, my hubby.
This book truly breaks down the matters of friendship, as in the DNA of friendship, love, trust, compassion, patience, encouragement, etc. It
Yeah,
absolutely does.
it
And
does.
just thinking, even in terms of, and you brought up a good point, Mr. Drinker, just the fact that even as a woman who is pursuing romantic relationship, friendship should be at the core of it,
It should be
regardless.
before.
It should
Mhm.
be at the core, because you might get mad at your boyfriend, but you love your best friend.
Right, right,
You know what
right,
I mean?
right. That's true.
You know,
Hmm.
I heard TD Jakes say something like that once. He put it a little differently, but he's like, I always have to remember that my wife is my sister, as in, sister in Christ. So
Right,
I
right,
might get, want to go off on my wife, but I
right.
have to remember who she is. So, that's just important to, realize that that's a key part of the relationship, and having that type of love as well as whatever may be going on romantically.
And I think it is. I mean, you talk about everything, that's where that pillow talk conversation comes from, where they get that from. And so it is key, those friendships. And I mean, I find even when going through this process, we call him Haas. He goes by Haas. Haas was the first person to read the book.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had my girlfriend Des, I don't know if she's in here, she read it. And then my team. So you see here, so Haas and Des, those were my beta readers. And then
Mm-hmm.
you see Latrita, Dana, and then there's several others, Sean and Patricia and Donna. And I feel like I'm missing another name, but it's 8 total. It's in the book. They were friends and family,
Mm-hmm.
but they took it serious. And that's what I love about that relationship too. That's another example. Like they were really, their opinions. And this, I mean, the book is done, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they coming together and we're just chatting about it. And I will never forget the first session we had after, and we were waiting. 2 people were lagging, taking long to read the book. And we finally got together, and it was supposed to be an hour and a half. And I want to say it was 4 hours.
Wow.
And when I tell you they got to discuss, and I had to, I was raising my hand, these are characters.
Right. These
Book.
are not real people.
So, I mean, these relationships, are so very, very, very important. And it was good to have a male's perspective, because he identified with one or more of the characters, and so did some of the other men. They see themselves as well, even though they're not the main characters. And
Mm-hmm.
in those relationships, like you said, it's very key to be friends with your significant other.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
think you saw that with, Saisha and Lamont. They were friends.
Right.
They
Absolutely.
still talk.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, that makes such a difference when people can maintain that relationship, and it's not just about
Right,
I'm hot and heavy for you. Yeah,
right,
that's great,
right.
but there comes a point in time where
That don't matter as much.
yeah,
Yes.
it doesn't matter as much.
Right.
Latrina is saying, "Yep, it got heated. We went hard for the characters because they were so
Yeah.
real."
I had to keep, I was like, hello. I mean, it was ridiculous. I
Mhm.
said, goodness gracious, we're gonna have to schedule another one.
That's something else.
Mhm.
Well, I'm going to go back to one of the questions that we had earlier.
Okay.
Will there be a sequel to this book?
There
Priscilla
is.
wants to know, because it does end in such a way that, leaves you wanting more. You wonder what's going to happen next with these characters.
Yes, yes. And I am working on that. I have started, and I will just say that I love how it's starting. I literally read the first chapter back to myself and laughed, irritated myself, shocked myself. I mean, it's just really, so I think it gives the readers, those who have read the first one, I think it takes you right where you need to be. It starts you
Mhm.
right there. If it's a book that, if you view Friendship Matters as a book that you can start reading and grabs your attention, I think this one will do that even more so.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
And we
I
have a
don't have
follow.
a title. I usually, what I find is that, so Friendship Matters started out being titled episodes.
Okay.
And as I continued writing, it became Friendship Matters by the end of me writing it in 2005.
Hmm.
But episodes was like this little joke me and a coworker had, and we would just always talk about, girl, that we had an episode yesterday, or girl, it would be that. And I was like, that was a good title. But as the characters intertwined and flowed, it became Friendship Matters. So I won't know what the sequel will be called until I get deeper into the chapters.
Right. And sometimes, it just comes, it's,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, God will speak
Mm-hmm.
and tell you this is what it should be.
Absolutely, absolutely. And who would have known? I said, people probably think I named this book Friendship Matters because of We're Today, Black Lives Matter, and all that. This book was named.
Written way before then, huh?
It was, yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Dana had a file. We have another question. Can you see basically the three characters having their own books, or will you continue to keep them together in one story?
I will say the sequel is them together, but I do see where people would like to know a little more about Kandace's background. Euniqé's is interesting. Saisha's most certainly, because she has a family member she lost, and her mother comes
Mhm.
out, and so I could see it. I could see where I could take them, bring them from younger to today. So it could happen.
Like
Mhm.
a prequel. That's always good. So
Yeah,
you
that would be good.
how
Why
people
not?
get there, because that is
Mhm.
one thing, sometimes in reading a story or even watching something on television, you're like, okay, I see what's happening now, but what got you here?
Right, 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 right.
What got you here? In my head, I'm thinking like, This Is Us. That was one of the joys of This Is Us, because you would go backward, you would go forward, you
Yeah,
would get a chance to kind of see, what was
absolutely.
happening over time, to see how people wound up where they were, or how
Yeah,
they were always that way, or whatever the case may be. Um,
right.
Priscilla is saying, all my friends love the book, and I will continue to bless others with it.
Oh,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much.
Yes,
I
yes.
appreciate you, Priscilla.
Yes, it's definitely a wonderful story, and I'm glad that you stuck it out and you did what you knew you were supposed to do, and put it out here into the atmosphere. So, I do have a quick question though, because a lot of times we have other people who are budding writers that either watch live or watch later on. Is there any advice that you would give to someone who wants to write, and especially since this is independently published, if they have a desire to put their own work out and maybe they're not going through the quote unquote traditional publishing route?
I would say outline first. That was something I did not know in my research back then. And so it took me a lot of time because I would write, and this is just how life happens. I would write, and then I would go back, and then I would write some more, and then I would go back. And it's not easy, keeping the flow of three main characters. It's definitely more simpler if you had one main character.
Mhm.
And so when I picked the book back up to move it forward, I did some research because I was like, wait a minute, this something seems out of place. Because think about it, it went through several laptops,
Mm,
several iterations of Word,
mm,
right? So it was just, and it said somewhere that you must outline first. If you don't, before you move forward, go back and outline. And that is how I was able to put the chapters and everything back together. So I would say outline, and I would also say just write. A lot of times we try to correct the grammar or everything, and we kind of get stuck. But when it hits you, I would say just keep writing, and save your stuff, because I transferred this book every time I bought a new laptop.
mm.
I had a plan. I just didn't know when it was going to come to fruition, but I knew I was not going to give up on this novel. I mean, it took me a good amount of time to write, so I was very proud of it. So those are the two main things I would say.
All right. Well, thank you so much for those words of wisdom, because a lot of times we don't know where to start,
Yeah.
because I'm an extremely busy person. I actually have a book in me, and every now and again, I'll jot down little things. I already kind of know what I want to call it. I already know what the names of some of the characters are, but those are just the little bits and pieces that I just hold on to, and eventually,
It'll come together.
it'll all come together. So that's very wonderful to get that advice.
Yeah.
So thank you, Rona D. I am so excited that I had a chance to talk to you and share your wonderful book, Friendship Matters, with the BGC Book Club audience. I thank you for bringing all your friends and family into the room with you.
I love having support. Thank you. I love it.
That's exciting, as well as some of the folks who watch normally. We have a comment from Paula, who's a regular viewer, thanking us for a very enlightening discussion. Looking forward to reading the book. Yes,
thank you, Paula.
Yes.
Appreciate it. Please let me know what you think.
Yes. Like I said, I really enjoyed it. I read it quickly. I'm like, and as I said, I could see bits and pieces of myself and people that I knew within it. So that made for a wonderful story and a great experience in reading. So if you could hold on for me for a second, just hang out for a second. I'm going to make the announcement for next week, and then we're going to go ahead and call it a night. But you hold on for me for just a second.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, once again for joining me and Rona this evening for a wonderful discussion about Friendship Matters. I really enjoyed reading the book, and I know that all of you all, if you haven't already done so, that you will as well. Just by means of announcement, I wanted to let you know that next week's author is going to be BC Ajapon with Daughter in Exile. Actually, she was here with me last year, and I'm looking forward to having her back for her second novel. So be with us next Monday evening, same time, same place, or if you're watching it after the fact, you'll want to, all of that will be available to you as well. So, okay, you had information about stars. Okay, well, for those of you all, thank you for asking that question, Paula. Basically, if you are watching on Facebook, there are something called Facebook stars that you can purchase through Facebook. And then you can, whenever you watch content like my content or content of others that you enjoy, you can send a little donation. I believe they range from like 99 cents up to whatever amount you feel that you would like to donate. And it basically helps creators to continue to create by, giving us a little something, something to pull things together. So thanks for asking that question. And, for those who have donated or if you plan to, I really appreciate all that you do. So one other thing, and I'll drop it in, I'll put it on screen, so give me just a second. There is actually a BGC, Brown Girl Collective bookstore that is attached to, sorry, I had a brain fart for a second. Bookshop. It's attached to Bookshop. So if you go onto Bookshop, you can actually purchase books from there. The authors that come onto the show are in that bookstore, and that's another opportunity for you to kind of support the work. So forgive me for a second, because I'm looking while I'm typing. So forgive me for that. But I'll put that on the screen. And if you would like to purchase books from any of the writers or authors that we've talked to before, please do so. That's another way to support the work. So that is, let me put that on screen. It's browngirlcollectivebookstore.com. If you go there, you can purchase some of the books that we have out and available. So, all right. Well, I look forward to seeing everyone next week and for future endeavors as well. I really do appreciate your time and your energy. Thanks for the questions and the comments and all that. It made for an even more joyful experience. So thanks again. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a good one. Bye-bye.